So let's talk about the metaverse and the inevitable church. What is it? It's so funny how in life, fiction can inspire reality, and reality often inspires fiction. The idea of the metaverse really has its roots in science fiction. Neal Stephenson famously coined the term in his novel Snow Crash, written in 1992, which I have right here. This is an updated cover, I really like it. And in this universe, the internet has evolved into a three-dimensional virtual space that looks like an urban environment. And if you read this book, you'll notice how much we've come full circle. Today, we're starting to see the metaverse concept gain significant momentum in various tech companies, in media, and in culture. Some notable examples of the metaverse in culture include Ernest Cline's 2011 book, Ready Player One. In that story, the world is captivated by the Oasis, basically an 80s themed virtual multi-world system where people can play, own and sell property, and make a living. Another notable example of a metaverse or virtual reality idea comes from the makers of Half-Life Alyx, one of the most anticipated games ever, as Half-Life was a very popular intellectual property in video games. Valve built this game from the ground up for virtual reality mechanics, meaning you could only really play this game if you invested in a VR headset. What's really interesting in the game is not just the story and the objectives, but how you can actually manipulate random menial things in this virtual sandbox that they created. You can pick up a marker and write on the window, you can stack random objects, and use your creativity to solve some of the objectives in the game. The game marks a significant leap in player agency and freedom that gives virtual world feedback. And lastly, this is a more recent example, as I am sure all of you have heard, Facebook, the company that brought you things like Facebook, changed their name to Meta recently. And a lot of people are talking about it's just a rebranding effort because they have a very tumultuous public image. But they basically said that they needed a new identity that actually encapsulates fully who they are, what they've become, and what they want to accomplish. Facebook is doubling down on the metaverse concept. They see a future where the internet goes from a 2D flat image where we're just reading it like a book to a 3D version of the internet, kind of like what Neal Stephenson envisioned 30 years ago. They are defining the metaverse as a set of virtual spaces where you can create and explore with other people who aren't in the same physical space as you. So why is the metaverse important to think about? Why would we want what the metaverse is offering, at least conceptually? Up until now in our technological evolution, we have created an internet that is primarily interfaced through a screen. It's been powerful, it's been effective, and it really is an extension of the age that we're coming out of, the print age that we as a civilization have adopted over the last 500 years. In short, we've so far watched the internet, and yes, we've been able to dabble and manipulate it in relatively limited ways, but we've used monitors, laptops, and tablets as our vehicle into the internet dimension. And though all of these things have gotten smaller and more portable, we are still outside looking in. The metaverse is a response to this limitation, and at the fundamental level is an online space that is incorporating more and more the elements of our physical reality and transposing it to our digital worlds, but with that added property that only comes from a digital space. In other words, we are going to escape that window. We sort of already do this, but at a very basic level. In the metaverse, much of how we interface with the internet will be through spaces. And if most of what we want to connect to are basically digital houses, that means there's going to be portals that allow us to go from one space to another. And it will be as seamless as going from the Google search engine to whatever you're searching for. This version of the internet, Web 3.0, the metaverse, will come even closer to recreating our offline physical world, reimagined and augmented digitally through network computing, big data, and the Internet of Things and AI. We are getting to the point where these major advancements in technology will converge and synergize together to offer something vastly more powerful and immersive to the average user. So what will be the implications? What does it look like to create wearables that allow us to have Iron Man-like sensors and overlays that analyze our surroundings in real time with helpful, proactive information? Or what does it look like to create a set of digital ecosystems that allow us to seamlessly go from my office to your office, or from a live concert in Madrid to a political election rally in Tokyo? What would Disney Plus or Netflix or Spotify look like in a three-dimensional space? How do we curate our preferences, our playlists, our catalogs, the things that we relate to, that we identify with the most? And what will it mean if we are all doing it together seamlessly? Today, we should talk about the metaverse because it's inevitable. It will be our reality in the near future. And that means the inevitable church will also have to both consider it and be willing to participate in it. But what will be our posture and what will be our principles? Are we just going to follow reluctantly? Is there a way that the metaverse will add to human flourishing without necessarily commodifying people and products? I think there's a way forward where the church can pioneer a gospel way into the metaverse. Here are 5 aspects of the metaverse that the inevitable church will need to consider. First, whether we like the metaverse or not, that's where people are going. Everyone will be invited into it, and it will fundamentally change how we learn, how we communicate, and how we work. All 3 of these aspects of our human condition are important and crucial to faith and spirituality. And so we must venture forward, but also tread lightly. Secondly, we are not just going there, but we're going to stake our claim and stay there. Once the internet morphs into a metaverse structure, that means there is going to be even more compelling reasons to claim our space in the metaverse. People will build extraordinary world-spanning communities that feel even more local and personal. People will identify and join together in more powerful ways, and that should give churches some thought about what sort of potential that is there for spaces to explore faith and spirituality. Thirdly, people are going to learn and work there. Education and vocation will be significantly impacted by the metaverse. And during that shift, there is going to be an extraordinary need for answers about meaning, purpose, and calling. New career paths and jobs are going to emerge overnight. What will be the ethical considerations of these new sorts of work? What will be the intended and unintended ramifications of a metaverse-driven economy and society? Fourth, people are going to get real confused in the metaverse. Think about how we were first introduced to social media. Coming into it, did we know what we were getting ourselves into? No, not at all. Some of our biggest challenges in society has come from the side effects of using social media without a clear set of principles or a tradition of wisdom to rely on. It just wasn't in the cards for us to navigate social media perfectly. And yet, we are certainly not going backwards, and we are not erasing the place that social media has in our lives. And here is the kicker. As the metaverse comes in, some of us will not see any value in it, and we'll try to not participate in it. But look at how you connect with your families nowadays. How do you work? How do you connect with your neighbors? How do you actually get things done in your daily life? You may not like social media. You may have lived your life up until now without it being a prominent place in your life. But it is completely assimilated into our societies. Even if we don't use it, the younger generation will. And if we want to connect with the younger generation, then we must prepare. Fifth and last, people are going to come out of the metaverse. The metaverse is not designed to replace the physical world, although some may fall into escapism. We know that the metaverse will have a more seamless capacity for us to come in and out. With the advent of wearables and augmented reality, we are going to navigate the passage from the physical to the virtual and back again and again, more and more frequently as it becomes mature and takes shape. People will cultivate things there and then bring them out. And we as the church need to understand that. The inevitable church will need to meet people at that passage and also continue to take stake and claim in the physical world, to draw people to a faith that at its foundation is an incarnated Savior. These are the 5 things we need to consider as we move forward into the future. As human beings, the end game for us is not tethered to screens or stuck in a virtual environment. It's also about connection, meaning, purpose, looking back in history, talking about ethics, our biology, our justice, renewal. And yes, the gospel of Jesus is primed and ready to enter into these spaces, into these dimensions too. And how we talk about theology, how we talk about the Bible, and ultimately how we talk about God himself will be a fascinating journey and proposition. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of The Inevitable Church. Please consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and joining in on the conversation. I'll catch you next time. Peace.